After nearly 29 years of marriage, my world was shattered when I discovered my wife's infidelity at a restaurant owned by a close friend of mine. It's true, she was cheating on me, and to make matters worse, it was with the owner of the establishment. As I reflect on my 50 years of life, it's a heartbreaking experience to come to terms with. My wife, who is 49, and I have raised our children, and they now have families of their own. The man she was involved with is a successful entrepreneur, owning a couple of restaurants. This ordeal has left me grappling with a whirlwind of emotions and uncertainties about the future. He played a significant role in my children's lives, acting like a second father whenever I couldn't be there. Unexpectedly, one day, I received a text from a coworker whom my wife had never met, mentioning that she appeared to be heavily flirting with another man. The strange part was that my wife was supposed to be at work that day, but apparently, she was seen in the company of this guy. This revelation has left me with a mix of emotions, especially considering the close bond my family shared with this man. And now I am left grappling with the implications of my wife's behavior. One day at work, I casually showed my friend a photo of my wife, and little did I know he would later play a crucial role in uncovering her deception. By sheer coincidence, he happened to be at the same restaurant where my wife was supposed to be at work. He sent me a photo, and to my dismay, there she was, having a good time at the restaurant when she was supposed to be on the job. The most disconcerting part was seeing her laughing and joking with my friend, leading me to assume that they were merely having a friendly chat. Little did I know the truth that lay beneath this seemingly innocent encounter. At first, I didn't think much of the situation. After all, he was a longtime family friend, so I brushed it off as nothing serious. I had been away for work that week, but I planned a sweet surprise for my wife. I was coming home early to take her out for lunch. Typically, my wife would call or text me when she was on her way home from work, but on that particular day, I received no message from her. As I arrived home around 11:30 a.m., I parked my car in the driveway, completely unaware of the unsettling revelation that was about to unfold. Approaching the front door, the sound of laughter emanated from inside the house, and my heart sank with a mix of emotions. As I turned the doorknob and stepped inside, there they were, my wife and my longtime friend, sharing laughs and engaged in conversation. Despite the familiarity of their relationship, the late hour, close to midnight, didn't sit well with me, and the warm and fuzzy feeling I usually had around my friend was nowhere to be found. The scene left me with an unsettling sense of discomfort and the realization that something was amiss. Why is he alone with my wife? I wondered, feeling a surge of concern as I discovered him at our house, seeking some clarity. I asked my wife what brought him here so late, and she explained that he had dropped by for a conversation. Though I acknowledged her response, my uneasiness lingered, and I chose not to voice my concerns at that moment. As my wife entered the room, she noticed my troubled expression and asked if I was all right. Gathering my thoughts, I admitted to her, I can't help but feel uneasy about the situation. A man coming over to a woman's house late at night when her husband isn't home just doesn't sit right with me. After expressing my unease to my wife, I decided to retire to bed and did exactly that. The following morning, my curiosity still lingering, I inquired once more about the reason for his late night visit. My wife reiterated her previous explanation, and while I wasn't entirely convinced, I chose to let the matter rest. Several weeks passed, and during that time, I found myself at my friend's restaurant. Unexpectedly, I bumped into his wife while I was there. I struck up a pleasant conversation with my friend's wife, finding her to be genuinely kind and friendly. As our discussion progressed, the topic eventually turned to my wife. To my surprise, she revealed that she had noticed my wife and her husband together on multiple occasions and had begun to suspect that they might be having an affair. Intrigued and concerned, I asked her why she harbored such thoughts about her husband and my wife's relationship. She shared her observations, explaining that she noticed my wife and her husband spending an unusual amount of time together, and he often spoke about my wife. Her concern was evident as she recounted these details. Determined to address the matter, I mentioned my intention to discuss it with my wife. In response, she offered a word of caution, suggesting that approaching my wife directly might not lead to a truthful admission if there was indeed any infidelity. She advised me to consider the situation carefully before taking any action. Following the conversation with my friend's wife, I couldn't shake off the nagging feeling of doubt. Without hesitation, I took out my phone right in front of her and dialed his number, determined to get a clear answer. Bluntly, I asked him directly if he was involved with my wife in any way. He firmly denied any such involvement, reassuring me that I was his friend, his closest companion. He responded with genuine concern in his voice, insisting that he would never betray our friendship in such a manner. Though I chose to trust his words, I still felt the need to discuss the matter with my wife. Later that evening, I gathered the courage to confront her about the situation. I asked her directly if there was any truth to the rumors, expressing my worries about her connection with my friend. She looked me in the eye and firmly denied any romantic involvement with him. Instead, she reassured me that their relationship was like that of siblings, and she would never jeopardize our marriage in any way. Despite my friend's assurances and his wife's statements, doubts continued to gnaw at me. The conversation with my friend's wife had planted a seed of suspicion in my mind, and it was hard to shake off. Over the following weeks, I couldn't help but observe a subtle change in my wife's behavior. She seemed to be growing a bit distant. The uncertainty lingering in my thoughts only intensified as I attempted to make sense of the situation. Feeling increasingly concerned about the situation, I considered it a red flag and decided to take an action that would offer me some peace of mind. I discreetly placed a GPS tracker on my wife's car. Several days passed, and one evening around 8 p.m., I noticed her car hadn't moved and was still parked in the driveway. Curiosity got the better of me, so I stepped outside to investigate. I found my wife in the driveway, engaged in a conversation on her phone. Worrying thoughts swirling in my mind, I mustered the courage to ask her who she was talking to. Upon asking her, my wife replied that she was talking to a female friend. Despite her response, I couldn't shake the feeling of suspicion, especially given her behavior on the phone outside. Something just didn't seem right. After she returned inside, I couldn't resist the urge to check the GPS tracking app on my phone. It revealed that she had only gone to work and back that day, with no other notable trips. The information provided some reassurance, but I still couldn't completely shake off my concerns. As I pondered the situation, I couldn't help but wonder why she hadn't taken the opportunity to go out and do something with a friend, as most people would. However, as I checked the tracking app again the next day, it revealed the same routine. She simply went to work and back home without any stops in between. Several days passed, and one evening when I returned home from work earlier than usual, I couldn't help but notice that my wife's car was absent from the driveway. At approximately 3 p.m., I felt the need to verify the situation, so I opened the tracking app once more. It indicated that she was at a restaurant, prompting me to consider visiting the place to gather more information. However, I refrained from going inside, opting instead to drive by discreetly. As I approached the restaurant, I noticed her car parked outside, and to my surprise, I saw her seated in a booth with our close friend. What caught my attention was the fact that they were holding hands across the table. My emotions were running high. I was filled with anger and frustration. The immediate impulse was to confront her on the spot, but I managed to restrain myself. Instead, I returned home and patiently waited for her to arrive, which was around 9 o'clock p.m. When she walked in, I couldn't hold back any longer and inquired about her whereabouts. She insisted that she had been at work all day. Deep down, I knew she was lying. Trying to maintain composure, I proceeded to ask her about her day, attempting to gather more information without revealing my suspicions. She responded with a simple, "It was good," during our small talk. However, the doubt still lingered in my mind, prompting me to take action. I finally decided to hire a private investigator temporarily to help me uncover the truth. The following day, I met with the investigator and explained what I needed assistance with. He cautioned me that the investigation might be a bit costly. Despite being warned about the cost, I was determined and told the private investigator to proceed with the job. However, after making that decision, practical concerns began to arise. I had to consider our assets. What would happen with the house and the cars if things turned out as I feared? Later that day, I urgently called my son and daughter to meet with me. They both arrived promptly, and as I explained the situation and my plans, it deeply upset them. As I disclosed the situation and my decision to hire a private investigator, my daughter couldn't hold back her emotions and started crying. I comforted her and reassured her that we would have to wait for the investigators' findings before jumping to any conclusions. With my children being 23 and 21, my son reacted strongly to the news. He asked me if I was absolutely sure about this. In response, I reiterated that our friend's wife has strong suspicions that he is having an affair with their mother. The gravity of the situation weighed heavily on all of us. Both of my children agreed to be vigilant and promised to inform me if they noticed anything suspicious. Several days passed, and then I received a troubling call from the private investigator. He informed me that he had some unfortunate news to share. Anxiously, I inquired about the details, and he disclosed that he had been tailing my wife, only to discover that she had indeed been meeting up with our friend as suspected. The revelation was deeply distressing to hear. The private investigator's report was even more devastating than I had imagined. He had managed to capture footage of my wife and our friend together at a hotel, holding hands and kissing. They had deliberately driven 30 minutes away to conceal their affair. Anger surged through me, and I desperately wanted to confront her immediately, but I knew I needed to gather my thoughts and plan my next steps carefully. The betrayal cut deep, and I needed time to process everything before deciding how to address the situation. The weight of the truth was overwhelming, and I had to find the right approach to handle this painful revelation. The following day, as my wife left for work as usual, I mustered the courage to call our friend's wife. She picked up immediately, and I inquired about how she was doing. She responded with a polite, "I'm good." Wanting to confirm the situation, I asked if her husband was at home, to which she replied that he was at work. After a few minutes of casual conversation, I couldn't delay it any longer. I decided to be direct and honest with her, so I revealed that I knew about the affair and that I had concrete evidence to support my claim. The truth needed to be confronted, no matter how difficult it was to discuss. After promising her that I'd have it ready in a few days, I decided to gather my kids for another meeting. As the evening descended, we rendezvoused at a nearby park. There, I revealed to my son and daughter the comprehensive findings put together by the private investigator. Witnessing the information before them, both of my children couldn't hold back their tears, and my son, overcome with disbelief, uttered, "I can't believe it." Upon hearing the gathered information, my daughter astutely remarked, "I knew something was up." Eager to involve them in the decision-making process, I inquired about their preferred course of action. My son asserted that confronting the individuals involved was the way to go. However, my daughter had a contrasting viewpoint, advocating for a passive approach, suggesting we let them continue their actions unchecked. Puzzled by her stance, I asked her directly, "Why would you want her to continue with the affair?" She calmly explained that allowing it to persist might expedite the divorce process and bring about a more solid resolution. I was taken aback when both my daughter and son expressed the desire for stronger evidence against their mother. Surprisingly, they both advised me to have the private investigator gather additional proof before proceeding with the divorce. It was disheartening to hear them suggest such an approach, as I grappled with the emotional complexity of the situation. Contrary to my expectations, I discovered that my children weren't inclined to urge their mother to end the affair and reconcile. Instead, they considered her actions a significant betrayal, finding it challenging to forgive her for straying down that path with a longtime friend. They labeled her behavior as selfish. Taken aback by their candid perspectives, I assured them that I would reflect on their input and carefully consider the situation before responding. The following day, I reconvened with the private investigator, urging him to intensify his efforts in gathering more evidence. He readily agreed to continue his investigation until instructed otherwise. Over the course of a few weeks, the private investigator managed to obtain some incriminating footage of them together at a hotel located 30 minutes away. The footage showed them engaging in playful activities by the pool, further adding weight to the evidence against them. After instructing the private investigator to compile the evidence, I received the footage and immediately contacted my lawyer to apprise him of the situation. While discussing the matter, he inquired if I wanted to initiate divorce proceedings right away, but I hesitated, not wanting to rush into such a life-altering decision. Instead, I decided to share the footage with my children. Together, we gathered in silence as we watched the unsettling scenes of their mother and our longtime friend merrily frolicking in the pool. The weight of the situation hung heavily in the air as we processed the painful reality of the betrayal before us. We exchanged glances filled with disgust, realizing that the time had come for a divorce. My daughter and son advised me to refrain from confronting her directly. Instead, they suggested handling things discreetly, allowing her to believe she was getting away with it. Taking their counsel to heart, I decided to follow their advice and proceeded accordingly. As the days turned into weeks, I continued to wear a facade of normalcy, pretending that everything was fine. We carried on with our daily routines as if nothing had changed, but in reality, I was already planning my departure. The only concern on my mind was what assets she might be entitled to in the event of a divorce. Being in New Hampshire, I knew that the issue of infidelity could potentially impact the outcome of the divorce proceedings. Recognizing the need to safeguard my interests and assets, I knew swift action was essential. Therefore, I decided to take a proactive step. One day, I informed my wife that I had to attend a business conference, concealing my true intentions to meet with my lawyer and initiate the divorce process. Later, after finishing work, I simply mentioned that the conference had taken a few hours and that I would be home later as usual. She responded with apparent acceptance. Meeting my lawyer, I expressed my clear intentions, prompting him to inquire if I was certain about this decision. Without a moment of hesitation, I assured him that I was resolute in my choice. Subsequently, I contacted the private investigator and requested all the information he had gathered on her, which he promptly sent to me. Feeling prepared and armed with evidence, I reached out to my son and daughter, asking them to join me at home for a crucial discussion, one where we would collectively confront their mother about the situation. As my wife arrived home, her face lit up with a bright smile as she saw all of us waiting. However, our kids seemed uneasy and did not return her smile. Sensing something was amiss, I asked her to take a seat and we all gathered around, exchanging glances. With a heavy heart, I finally mustered the courage to reveal that I had filed for divorce. Pulling out my laptop, I showed her the painful truth captured in the footage. Her and our friend at the hotel pool, betraying the trust and commitment we once held dear. The atmosphere in the room was tense and emotions ran high as we confronted the difficult reality of our relationship. In response to the devastating revelation, she found herself speechless, her gaze fixed upon the floor, consumed by shame. With a heavy heart, I informed her that I would be putting the house up for sale within the next month, symbolizing the finality of our decision. As she struggled to find the right words, she expressed her predicament, saying she had nowhere else to go. Despite the difficult situation, I knew that we needed space and time apart to heal and move forward. With a mix of empathy and firmness, I reiterated my request for her to leave, knowing that it was necessary for both of us to begin the process of healing and rebuilding our lives. Upon witnessing their daughter's silence, our son finally broke it by suggesting, with a nod towards a picture of our friend, "You could consider living with him." In response to this unexpected proposition, she departed that very night. In the subsequent weeks, she made several visits to retrieve her belongings, oscillating between her old home and our friend's place. Our children adamantly rejected the idea of seeing her, their disdain evident. After a couple of months, we made the decision to sell the house. I patiently waited until the divorce proceedings were finalized before embarking on the search for a new home. Upon selling the house, I temporarily moved in with my daughter while I sought a suitable place to call my own. During the divorce hearing, my ex-wife surprisingly didn't resist the proceedings. The evidence gathered by the private investigator, presented by my lawyer, left her without any substantial claims. It turned out that she had a good income of her own, as she successfully managed rental car facilities. Once the divorce was officially concluded, I proceeded to purchase a new house, and my children were kind enough to lend their support, helping me move into the new place. Following the divorce, my children disclosed that they had not received any communication from or encountered their mother since then. On that same night, an unexpected confrontation took place. As for my friend, we decided to cut ties, and he is no longer a part of our lives. His wife divorced him, and he is now obligated to provide spousal support for 8 years, or until she remarries, considering their lengthy marriage. Amidst the harrowing ordeal, the most remarkable aspect was how my kids handled the situation. They became my unwavering pillars of strength, and I cannot express enough how proud I am of them. I would have never fathomed that such a situation could befall me, but it did. Surprisingly, I emerged from it all as a better person, thanks to the resilience and support of my children. There's one important detail I omitted earlier. When I sold the house due to my wife's infidelity, she did not receive half of the proceeds. Instead, she only received 30%. It turns out that her cheating played a role in the division of assets. Thank you for listening to the story to the end, and if you like it, please support us with a like as well as subscribe to our channel. Write in the comments what you think about the story.